You won't believe how my husband, the man I stood by for over a decade, the one who promised in sickness and in health, betrayed me while I was fighting for my life. While I was navigating the terrifying, grueling reality of chemotherapy, losing my hair, my energy, and grappling with my own mortality, he was building a new life with my best friend. My childhood best friend. I was battling cancer. They were planning their escape. But they didn't know that reducing me to my illness, seeing me as an inconvenience, was the single biggest mistake they'd ever make. What they did nearly broke me. It redefined pain, twisting the physical agony of treatment with the soul-deep wound of betrayal. They stole my peace, tried to steal my future, and thought I was too weak, too preoccupied, to even notice, let alone fight back. They thought they'd left me with nothing but a medical diagnosis and a broken heart. But they didn't know I had one thing they didn't, something forged in the fire of my illness, a brain built for strategic warfare and a resolve harder than any tumor. I lost my sense of security, my trust, everything I thought my marriage was during the darkest period of my life. But within a year, what happened next was the absolute shock of their lives. They thought they were untouchable. I knew the law and the truth were my greatest weapons. Charlotte, North Carolina had always felt like home. A city of Southern charm mixed with booming business, it suited me perfectly. At 34, I was a marketing executive, thriving in a fast-paced world that demanded sharp thinking and meticulous planning. My life felt ordered, predictable, good. I had a comfortable house in a nice neighborhood, a career I loved, and I had Derek Winninger, my husband of 8 years, together since college. He was handsome, charismatic, the kind of guy who could charm anyone in a room. He transitioned from traditional finance into the burgeoning world of crypto investment, riding the wave of digital gold. To the outside world, we were the golden couple, successful, put together, living the American dream. Behind closed doors, things were less perfect. Derek had developed a certain arrogance, a dismissiveness that grated on me. My marketing career, once something he admired, was now just my little hobby compared to his high-stakes world. But I loved him. Or I loved the man I thought he was, the man he had been. I attributed the changes to stress, to the pressures of his work, clinging to the history we shared. And then came the lump, a small, hard knot I found by accident one quiet evening after a particularly grueling product launch. The diagnosis was swift, brutal. Stage 2 breast cancer. My world tilted on its axis. Suddenly, marketing strategies and quarterly reports were replaced by medical jargon, surgical consultations, oncology appointments. My life became a blur of hospital visits, the cold, sterile smell, the sympathetic looks from nurses. Chemotherapy, the dreaded word. The nausea, the fatigue, the slow, inevitable loss of my hair. Wigs became a necessity, a way to cling to some semblance of normalcy, to control one small thing in a life spinning out of control. Tears came easily in the privacy of the bathroom, grief for the life I had, fear for the future. And Derek? My partner, my husband, the one who should have been my rock. He was conveniently unavailable. He'd show up to one chemo session, looking uncomfortable, checking his phone constantly, before having to leave for an urgent call. He missed doctor appointments altogether, citing client emergencies. He even forgot our anniversary while on a supposed business trip to Miami. His dismissiveness wasn't just hurtful, it felt like active abandonment. I was fighting for my life, and he acted like my illness was an inconvenience, a disruption to his important, burgeoning empire. I tried to talk to him, to explain the fear, the pain, the sheer exhaustion. He'd pat my hand, offer platitudes about being strong, and then pivot the conversation back to his latest deal, his latest success. He was incapable or unwilling to truly see me, to sit with the ugliness and uncertainty of my reality. During this time, my childhood best friend, Rachel Devlin, was a constant, if draining, presence. Rachel. We'd been inseparable growing up, sharing secrets and dreams. But adulthood had changed us. While I focused on my career, Rachel had cultivated a persona as a lifestyle blogger, curating an online image of effortless perfection, chasing sponsorships and followers. She was self-absorbed, always steering conversations back to herself, her latest collaboration, her follower count. I'd noticed her subtle flirting with Derek over the years, dismissed it as part of her general need for male validation. I trusted her. She was my best friend. She'd visit during my treatment, offering empty platitudes and endless selfies she'd caption with things like, supporting my brave friend. #cancer sucks, #besties, before rushing off to her next event. Her presence, meant to be supportive, often left me feeling more isolated. The discovery wasn't dramatic. There was no hidden lipstick on a collar, no suspicious text notification on a phone he'd left lying around. It was mundane. I needed to schedule an urgent MRI. My own iPad was dead and my phone was out of reach. I saw Derek's iPad on the counter. "Hey, can I borrow this for a sec?" I called out. He grunted from the other room, preoccupied. I opened the messaging app. It was synced to his phone. And there, at the top of his recent conversations, was a thread with Rachel Devlin, my childhood best friend. I started reading. Flirty jokes. Inside jokes that excluded me. Suggestive photos, hers. Discussions about meeting up, being careful. My stomach churned. And then I saw it. A booking confirmation. Flights to Aruba. Under aliases. Dated for a week. I knew he'd told me he had a last-minute business conference out of state. The date on the booking? A week before my next major chemo infusion. I stared at the screen, the bright white light burning into my eyes. My bald head reflected faintly in the glass. I looked at the messages again. Messages exchanged while I was weak, vulnerable, fighting for every breath. Messages about their secret trips, their new adventure, their excitement. There was no screaming, no throwing the iPad across the room, just silence. A profound, internal silence that felt colder than the hospital rooms I'd become so familiar with. The physical pain of my illness receded, replaced by a sharper, more acute agony. Betrayal on two fronts, from the two people I should have been able to count on. I closed the messaging app. I deleted the recent call logs. I returned the iPad to the counter, making sure it looked exactly as I'd found it. My hands didn't even shake. My mind, honed by fighting cancer, by breaking down complex problems into manageable steps, began to work. I had fought cancer. Now I would fight back. Not with anger, not with emotion, but with strategy. They had used my illness, my vulnerability, against me. I would use their arrogance, their deceit, against them. I didn't confront either of them. What would be the point? Their actions spoke louder than any words they could offer, any lies they might concoct. Confrontation would give them the opportunity to lie, to manipulate, to gaslight. I needed information, not a confession. I continued to play the part of the recovering wife. Still tired, still focused on my health, still accepting Derek's perfunctory check-ins and Rachel's carefully curated visits. But beneath the surface, the strategist was at work. Every interaction was analyzed. Every excuse Derek made was noted. Every overly sweet message from Rachel was logged in my mind. My first call wasn't to a friend to cry on a shoulder. It was to a lawyer. A friend of a friend had mentioned DeWitt. Not just a divorce attorney, they'd said, but a specialist in complex cases, in protecting women who were being taken advantage of. Ex-military, meticulous, and fiercely private. He sounded perfect. DeWitt's office was understated, professional. He was a man of quiet intensity, his eyes missing nothing. I laid it all out for him. The diagnosis, the treatment, the discovery of the affair, the financial irregularities I'd started to notice in our joint business accounts. He listened patiently, occasionally asking a sharp, pointed question. When I finished, there was a long silence. "Ms. Winninger," he said finally, his voice low and steady. "You are fighting on two fronts. Let's make sure you win on both." He didn't talk about emotional damage or finding peace. He talked about evidence, about legal strategy, about protecting my assets and my future. He was exactly what I needed. A general for the war I was about to wage. DeWitt outlined the plan. Step 1. gather irrefutable evidence. He instructed me on how to legally obtain screenshots of messages without raising suspicion, how to trace financial movements, how to document everything. Accessing Derek's messages became a calculated risk. I'd wait until he was in the shower or on a call in another room and quickly snap photos of the damning conversations on my phone. I started keeping a detailed log, cross-referencing dates with my treatment schedule and his alleged business trips. Tracing the money was more complex. We had a joint business account for the marketing firm we'd started together years ago, though I was the primary operator and face of the business, and a joint personal savings account. I noticed large, unexplained transfers to offshore accounts, disguised with vague descriptors. Derek's crypto ventures were booming, but this looked different. It looked like hiding money. DeWitt brought in a forensic accountant he trusted implicitly. We started building a case for financial manipulation, even embezzlement, potentially involving tax evasion. The security camera felt like something out of a spy movie. DeWitt recommended a discreet, easily installed camera with remote access. I found a perfect spot, hidden among my plants in the living room, angled towards the main seating area and the front door. It captured arrivals and departures. And it captured Rachel entering my home. Using her key, she still had one, just in case. Looking comfortable, too comfortable in my space, with my husband. The footage was damning. Intimate moments, stolen glances, the casual ease of people who felt safe in their deception. The voice memos were the hardest. I started leaving my phone's voice recorder app running when Derek was on calls in the house, or when I suspected he was talking to Rachel. Listening back was like twisting a knife in an open wound. His mocking tone as he described my pity parties, his complaints about my bald head and lack of energy, his cruel laughter at my expense. It fueled my resolve. This wasn't just about infidelity. This was about a complete lack of empathy, a cold, calculating cruelty. Meanwhile, DeWitt began the legal maneuvers. The marketing firm we'd started together was technically a partnership. While I ran the day-to-day, Derek had a significant ownership stake. Under DeWitt's guidance, we executed a complex legal maneuver. Using documentation I had from when the firm was founded, and leveraging a clause about business continuity during a partner's long-term illness. Ironic, I know. We transferred my shares into a newly created holding LLC. It was a silent move, legally sound, and effectively shielded my portion of the business from any future claims he might have during a divorce, or any fallout from his other financial dealings. He didn't notice. He was too busy chasing crypto millions and my best friend. Next, our joint savings. They were substantial, built over years for our future, maybe even starting a family someday. DeWitt helped me set up a personal trust, specifically designated for current and future medical expenses related to my cancer treatment. I transferred a significant portion of the savings into this trust. Legally, funds allocated for medical purposes are protected, especially in cases of ongoing or potential future treatment. It was a strategic move, using my illness as a shield to protect what was rightfully mine from a man who saw my health as a burden. My parents, Jillian and Ron, were my emotional anchors during this time. Southern to the core, God-fearing, and deeply involved in their community, they were worried sick about my health. They didn't know about Derek and Rachel. I couldn't bring myself to tell them, not while I was still fighting cancer. Their support was simple: casseroles, prayers, endless encouragement. They unknowingly provided perfect cover stories for my absences, staying at Mom and Dad's for a few days to rest. They also, unintentionally, provided snippets of information. Saw Rachel at the grocery store, sweet girl, asked all about you, Mom would say. Or, Ron ran into Derek at the club, says he's doing mighty well with that cyber money. Every little piece fit into the puzzle I was meticulously assembling. There were close calls during the preparation. One evening, while I was transferring files from Derek's laptop, he unexpectedly came home early. I scrambled, slamming the laptop shut just as he walked in. "Hey, whatcha doing?" he'd asked, too casually. "Just looking at old photos," I'd stammered, my heart pounding. He'd shrugged, grabbed a beer, and didn't question further. His own self-absorption was my greatest asset. Another time, Rachel texted me. Hey, Derek said you guys had a little leak under the sink. Hope it's fixed okay. My blood ran cold. I hadn't mentioned a leak to Derek. He must have told Rachel, perhaps while she was at the house, and she'd brought it up, thinking she was being sweet. It was a tiny thing, but it confirmed they were sharing mundane details of our home life, operating as a couple within my walls. It solidified my resolve. They had no respect for me, or my home, or the vows we'd taken. A year passed. A year of chemo, of surgery, of radiation, of slowly regaining my strength. A year of quiet preparation, of gathering evidence, of strategic legal moves. My hair was growing back, short and soft. The fatigue was lifting. The dark cloud of illness was receding. And the plan? It was ready. Derek, oblivious to the storm gathering around him, decided to throw a lavish party. His crypto fund had just had a massively successful quarter, hitting some arbitrary financial milestone that he felt warranted a major celebration. The invitation list was long and glittering. Investors, clients, local politicians, the Charlotte business elite, influencers, of course, Rachel would be there, and even some local press. He booked a swanky venue uptown. It was his victory lap. I received an invitation, an engraved card, requesting the honor of my presence. He clearly expected me to come as the supportive, recovering wife, a prop in his narrative of success. I RSVP'd yes. The day of the party, I spent hours getting ready. It wasn't about looking good for Derek or Rachel. It was about reclaiming my image, presenting the woman who had survived, who was strong, who was in control. I wore a dress that made me feel powerful, confident. My short hair was styled perfectly. My makeup was flawless. I looked in the mirror and saw not the cancer patient, not the betrayed wife, but Elena Winninger, the strategist, the survivor. I arrived fashionably late. The venue was buzzing, filled with the din of conversation and laughter. Derek stood near the entrance, basking in the attention, Rachel a radiant and oblivious figure by his side. They saw me enter. Derek's smile faltered for a second, replaced by a look of surprised appraisal. Rachel offered a wave that didn't reach her eyes. I simply smiled, a calm, serene smile, and moved into the crowd, accepting greetings, exchanging pleasantries, playing the part of the gracious wife, celebrating her husband's success. As the evening progressed, Derek gathered everyone's attention. He stood on a small stage, a microphone in his hand, the picture of confidence. Ladies and gentlemen, he announced, his voice booming, thank you all for coming tonight. It's been an incredible year for the fund, and I couldn't have done it without the support of incredible people. He gestured vaguely in my direction, a fleeting, almost obligatory acknowledgement. Let's toast, he raised his glass, to success, to the future, and to new beginnings. A ripple of agreement and raised glasses went through the crowd. I have a better toast, I said, my voice clear and calm, amplified unexpectedly by a hidden microphone DeWitt's team had discreetly set up. All heads turned towards me. I walked forward, holding my own glass. I reached the stage, standing next to Derek, who looked utterly confused. Rachel watched from the side, a frown creasing her perfect brow. I raised my glass, looking out at the sea of faces. To surviving the unimaginable, I said, my voice gaining strength, reflecting the year I'd endured, and uncovering the unforgivable. A ripple of confused murmurs spread through the room. What was she talking about? Surviving? Was she talking about her cancer? Uncovering? I turned to the crowd, my smile unwavering. You all know I've been through a challenging year, I continued, acknowledging the elephant in the room, my illness. But during that challenge, I learned a lot. Not just about health, but about honesty, loyalty, and the true cost of betrayal. I signaled subtly to a group of event staff I had hired separately, coordinated by DeWitt's team. They moved through the crowd, each carrying stacks of custom-printed black envelopes. As a thank you for celebrating tonight, I said, my voice carrying a deceptive lightness, I wanted to share a little insight into the new beginnings being toasted here tonight. Confused guests took the envelopes, looking at each other, then back at me. Derek looked furious, his face starting to redden. Rachel looked pale. Slowly, tentatively, people began to open the envelopes. Silence fell over the room, spreading from table to table like a chilling wave. Gasps erupted. Whispers turned into shocked exclamations. A woman near the front cried out, "Oh my God!" Inside the envelopes were neatly printed sheets. Screenshots of Derek and Rachel's damning text messages, laid out chronologically. Small, clear photos captured by my hidden security camera, Rachel entering my house, moments of intimacy, the undeniable proof of their affair within the home I shared with Derek while I was fighting for my life. A short, concise statement from me, calmly outlining the timeline, my diagnosis, the start of my treatment, the dates of their affair coinciding with my most vulnerable moments, and my journey of uncovering the truth and preparing to reclaim my life. Rachel dropped her champagne glass. It shattered on the floor, the sound sharp and jarring in the sudden silence. Derek's face was ghost white, his eyes wide with panic, darting between the guests, the opened envelopes, and me. His carefully constructed world was collapsing around him. I stepped forward, my posture straight, my voice clear and steady, cutting through the stunned silence. "You cheated on me," I said, looking directly at Derek, the man I had loved for so long, while I fought for my life. I paused, letting that sink in. "So," I continued, my gaze sweeping across the horrified faces of his investors, his colleagues, the press, "I fought for something else." I held up a thick, official-looking envelope. I fought for justice, for accountability, and for what was rightfully mine. I walked over to Derek and handed him the envelope. "These are divorce papers," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Along with claims for asset forfeiture based on your breach of fiduciary duty in our joint business, and documentation regarding the true extent of your financial manipulations." He stared at the envelope, his hand shaking as he took it. He opened his mouth, perhaps to protest, to lie, to bluster, but no sound came out. And then, the final blow. A man in a dark suit stepped forward from the edge of the crowd, near where the press was gathered. He wasn't a guest. He was Detective Barnes. I had met him months ago, when DeWitt and I had quietly presented our initial findings regarding Derek's suspicious financial transfers. Barnes was a no-nonsense financial crimes investigator. He held up a badge. "Derek Winninger," Detective Barnes announced, his voice ringing with authority through the stunned room. "You are being investigated by the Charlotte Police Department for embezzlement and tax evasion. Your accounts related to Winninger Crypto Ventures and associated offshore entities have been frozen." The gasp that followed was deafening. The affair was one thing. Cheating on his wife while she had cancer was morally reprehensible. But financial fraud? Criminal charges? This went far beyond personal betrayal. It struck at the heart of Derek's identity, his business, everything he prided himself on. It turned out the offshore transfers weren't just hiding money from me, they were hiding it from the IRS and investors. Elena and DeWitt, working with a forensic accountant, had traced the convoluted path of funds, uncovering a pattern of illicit activity far more extensive than initially suspected. My little hobby marketing brain, combined with DeWitt's legal and investigative expertise, had systematically dismantled his criminal enterprise alongside his personal life. The room erupted into controlled chaos. Guests scrambled for exits, whispering frantically into their phones. The press surged forward, microphones thrusting towards Derek, who stood frozen on the stage, the picture of a man whose world had just imploded. Rachel was sobbing, trying to disappear into the crowd. I stood there for a moment, amidst the pandemonium, a sense of profound calm washing over me. It wasn't vengeance. It was justice. Clean, cold, undeniable justice. The aftermath was exactly as DeWitt and I had planned. Rachel Devlin's life as a lifestyle blogger ended that night. The video footage from the party, captured by the legitimate press and shared widely across social media, was devastating. Her curated online persona crumbled under the weight of public scorn. Her attempts at a tearful video apology were met with mockery and a mass exodus of followers and sponsors. She faded into bitter obscurity. Derek Winninger was indicted. The evidence was overwhelming: the financial records, the traced offshore accounts, the testimony secured by DeWitt. His accounts were frozen, his assets seized. He lost his firm, his reputation, everything he had built on a foundation of greed and deceit. The house, thanks to the legal maneuvering with the LLC and my prior investment, was transferred solely into my name as part of the settlement. The man who had seen my illness as an inconvenience lost his freedom and his fortune. And me? I didn't just survive. I thrived. The story of the Charlotte executive who took down her cheating, embezzling husband while battling cancer became a sensation. Instead of being defined by my illness or the betrayal, I was defined by my strength, my intelligence, and my refusal to be a victim. I didn't return to my old marketing firm. I sold my shares in the now successful LLC. Derek's share was used to settle legal claims and restitution. With the financial security I had fought for and the clarity gained from my experience, I started something new. A nonprofit organization called Scar Strong, dedicated to providing financial and emotional support for women undergoing cancer treatment. It resonated deeply. My own experience, my scars visible and invisible, became a symbol of resilience. Within months, we were backed by several Fortune 500 companies touched by the mission and my story. A month after the party, I received an invitation to speak at a TEDx event in Charlotte. The topic was open, as long as it was an idea worth spreading. I knew exactly what I wanted to talk about. Standing on that red circle, looking out at hundreds of faces, I told my story. I talked about fear, about pain, about the unexpected strength you find when your back is against the wall. I talked about betrayal, yes, but not with bitterness. With analytical detachment, explaining how I used the skills I had, strategy, planning, attention to detail, to navigate the most challenging period of my life and dismantle the forces that tried to destroy me. My talk was titled, How I Survived Chemo, Cheating, and Corporate Theft and Won. It wasn't just about winning in court or winning financially, or even winning my health back. It was about winning back my life on my own terms. It was about showing that even in your darkest moments, you have power. You have agency. And sometimes, the most powerful revenge isn't loud or violent. It's intelligent. It's strategic. It's justice, meticulously planned and served cold. And for Derek and Rachel, caught in the glare of the truth I had exposed, it was a winter that would last a very, very long time.